that's going to make you maybe a little uncomfortable, but it's going to break the ice in the room. I want you to find another woman and compliment her. Tell her, girl, you look good. Your hair is did. Your brows are together. Yes. Yeah. There are so many different places you could be. So that you would come out and spend some time with us this morning really means a lot to us. We made a last-minute decision to start streaming Heart Chat. So if you all would take a moment, since we couldn't compliment our online audience, maybe we could just celebrate the fact that they are joining us from literally all over the world. Good morning from the ladies here on the West Coast. We don't know, your hair may be tied up, you may be eating breakfast. But do you, girl, do you? And thank you for joining us. I'm so excited. This is our very first Heart Chat. And I had to, I won't say beg PT, but I had to convince him a little bit that if he would allow me to open the theater up on a Saturday, that you all would come out and spend time with us. And so thank you so much for coming out. This is more people than we anticipated, but we had already decided that if only one person came and their life was changed, that was all that matters. And so we're going to have a little bit of girl talk. I know our topic for today, learning who you were, who you are, and who you are becoming, speaks to the many cycles of life. So no matter who you were before, life is guaranteed to take you through an evolution that changes the definition of who you are. And so in order to kind of set the tone out, I began studying and praying about what we're going to do today, and we've got some incredible women that I can't wait to introduce you to. But one of the first I want to introduce you to is in the Bible. I'm going to set a biblical foundation and tone for this evening. One, so you recognize that women have been changing and evolving long before now. The reality is that we get into this sense of isolation and begin to think that we are the only ones who have ever had to evolve and change so many times. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I've lived so many lives, like college Sarah. God bless her. She was not First Lady Sarah at all. But then again, in a way, she was. And I think that we have to come to a place where we recognize that we needed every tear, every heartbreak, every ratchet decision in order to fully become who we are. In Judges 2:10, there's a woman in the Bible who we are first introduced to as a prostitute. Literally, the definition of prostitute is exchanging sexual favors for money or for favor or bargaining. And so we find her in the Bible, Rahab, speaking to two spies. Do you all have my text? I'm not going to preach a whole lot, just a little bit. And the text says, when all that generation had been gathered to their fathers, and another generation arose after them who did not know the Lord, nor the work which he had done for Israel. That's not what I pulled. That's all right. Judges 2:10. The devil is a liar on today. Give your girl another compliment. Find something else. Find another girl. Can you all double check that for me? Oh, okay, they're pulling it. I mean, do you all have the Bible app or your word or sword with you on today? There we go. There it is. Okay. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt. So this is Rahab talking to two spies. Rahab is right on the border of the land that they have been told to inhabit. And before they can go into the land, they send a spy. They send two spies into the land, and these two spies have an encounter with a prostitute. And the prostitute then tells them how they've heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for them when they came out of Egypt. And what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who were on the other side of the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. Basically, she was like, the streets have been talking. And we were serving other gods, okay? And we had this mindset before we heard what God had done for you all, that you all aren't exactly the ones that we should be messing with, because when God is on your side, seas start drying up and things start moving out of the way. And so if you tell me that you're going to come and inhabit our land, I want to make this bargain with you, that if you come in and you inhabit this land, that you'll help preserve me and my family. If I help you, if I hide you, if I cover you, if I give you the lay of the land and tell you who is who, that you would do me this favor and you would preserve me and my family. We have a prostitute who went from exchanging her body for favor to utilizing her mind, to utilizing her position for favor. She was a prostitute. But now she's having to redefine herself in that moment to fit the circumstances around her. And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts melted. Neither did there remain any more courage in anyone because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and on earth beneath. Now, therefore, I beg you, swear to me by the Lord, since I have shown you kindness, that you will also show kindness to my father's house and give me a true token. If you go back to verse, and spare my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. If you go back to 10 for me, there's something there that I want to show you. The process of how she changed and evolved. It started with, for we have heard. So who was she in that moment? She was someone who heard. She was once someone who was looking for a particular result. She knew she had this history of exchanging her body, and in return she would get money, and she would get this, and she would get that. But for some reason she heard that things didn't have to be that way. And from the moment that she heard things no longer had to be that way, she was someone who wanted to see. She was looking for a sign. See, because we hear about the goodness of God. We hear about him filling us up and changing our lives. We've heard a word, but what happens when we're on the verge of no longer wanting to hear? We want to see that word in our lives. And when we come to that point where we want to see it, then how do we go one step further and really believe that it is applicable to us? So often it's so easy for us to see God in other people's life. But when it's time for him to see him in our own, it's like we have blinders. And as long as we are committed to seeing ourselves through the lenses of our past, we'll never fully understand the beauty of our reality. What I love about this text in Rahab is that she's made a commitment to become something else. That in spite of her past and in spite of this, perhaps even being in the presence of men where she's used to using her body and used to enticing them, that she dared to be vulnerable enough to use her mind. She was vulnerable enough to show her heart and to admit that she wanted to be saved. She was willing to break out of the box that she had created for herself and become. And so what we want to challenge you to do in this time that we have together It's to break out of the paradigm of who you thought you were. That when we look back on who you were and who you are becoming, that you no longer place limits on that. That you recognize that your potential, your growth is limitless. That you don't have to become the person your mother was. That you don't have to be afraid of becoming like all the other women from where you're from. That you can actually afford to dream and you can afford to be disappointed. That you can get it wrong and that's okay, because our greatest lessons lie in the moments when we got it wrong. My greatest prayer for you when we leave this time is that when you look back over your life, when you look back over the things that may make you cringe sometimes, the things that hurt, the things that you aren't so proud of, that you recognize that Rahab had to be a harlot before she could become a hero. That she needed even her interaction with men and the ability to bargain in order to put herself in a position where she was able to spare the life of her and her family. We all have these jagged edges. Some of them aren't relationships like ours have been or like Rahab's have been. Some of us have just been broken and hurt and abused, so much so that when we say fill me up, that we don't even know where God needs to fill us. But we come to a place in our lives where we're vulnerable and willing to share that truth with other people in hopes that we can inspire one another, that in our time together that we can engage one another. And because we are women, and because we are believers, that when I look at your imperfect past, that I don't judge and I don't use it as an opportunity to make myself feel better. But I see someone who was brave enough to admit that they haven't always done things right. And so I've got this diverse panel of women who are willing to share their stories, to share their hearts. And hopefully you're going to see a piece of yourself as we're on stage. And as we tell our stories, we're going to laugh, and some of us may even cry. But at the end of the day, we're all going to come to this place of becoming, where we're constantly evolving, constantly changing, and we're not afraid of what's on the other side of that evolution. We're too young to be locked into one definition of who we are. And when I say too young, I mean that we could be 60 years old and we could still change again and we could still grow again and we could still dream and mature again. This is bigger than our 20s and 30s and what we feel is our heydays. This is recognizing that any moment that we open our eyes, any time that we've been promised another breath, is a chance for us to see ourselves as beautiful. And not just on the outside, but that we can look back over all that we've gone through and still see beauty in that. So I'm going to introduce you all to some of my friends. Some of them I stalked on social media until they said that they would come. Just totally normal. And others I've had the blessing and honor of watching from afar and interacting with when I first came here. So I would like for you all to help me welcome, make sure they feel, because they're a little bit nervous because they think you all judge. And I told them, nobody who came to see me is judging. So if you can take a moment and stand and welcome to the stage Katie Grace, Stephanie E.K., and Dania Thomas. Just so you all know, Dania is the director of Beyond Beauty, who has allowed this incredible time together to happen. And so we're going to start. I'm going to just give you all an opportunity to introduce yourself. And I want you all to tell the ladies who you used to be. And then I'm just going to try to get in this chair without it falling. So just pay all of your attention to over that way.
Well, my name is Dania again, and I am just so overwhelmed to be here today. When I look back over my life, I never would have imagined that God would bring me here to this point, to this moment. I used to be somebody who was depressed. I used to be someone who was looking for love in all the wrong places. I used to be someone that was broken in ways that I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not used to the mic. No mic. Beyond beauty. I used to be someone who was broken in ways that I didn't even see or understand. And thankfully, God, He had me sit still, and He began to show me who I was.
Is that me? No. Okay. My name is Stephanie Ike. So going back to who I used to be, in one word, it would be insecure. And so what that looked like was that I would be different things to different people, and just to get that validation from those different sources. And so, yes, Sarah mentioned college days, and you find yourself doing some crazy things. But, thank God for the glory.
Hello? Oh, there we are. My name is Katie Grace, and who I used to be. I was kind of hoping somehow I would miss this question. Let's see. Who I used to be is so much different than who I am now. Having grown up in the church and my parents loved me, it was, all of the things that you need, I thought I had. And then as I got older, I really started to realize the decisions I was making was because, we think, we look at the surface and it's like, I have food, I have shelter, I have, people who are there for me, I'm in church, I'm hearing all the right things, I'm wanting to, care for other people and all this kind of stuff, and then my heart was neglected. And as I got older, I began to make decisions based out of just that neglect. My dad passed away when I was 12. So going into adolescence, I definitely went in with a deficit. Not knowing, obviously, when you're 12, you don't know that you need that. And no matter how many other awesome people are around you, God's design and the family origin is so important in how we move forward and how we, like Sarah was saying, when we ask God to fill us, like those empty places are really real, and we're going to get those filled somewhere. So I guess to say, when I look back on who I was, my heart was just really neglected, and I was finding all these other ways to kind of numb that, whether it was church or guys, and the story goes on.
For me, I feel like we have this way of convincing ourselves that we're okay, especially as women, that we can pretend all day long like, I'm good, I'm okay, I don't need any help, I'm fine. And we begin to embrace an identity of hurting silently while projecting confidence. And then when we look around us and everyone has on this same facade, then it just encourages us to continue to pretending. And then there comes this it comes to this point where we don't even recognize who we are anymore. That we spent so long pretending that when you say fill us up, or when you say who was I before, that we don't even know who was the real us and who were we pretending to be. And so how did you come to a place where you were willing to be vulnerable enough to really face the fact that you weren't okay, that you didn't have it all together, and that you wanted to change?
Wow. There were a couple of things. One, God lovingly allowed things to fall apart to where I had no choice but to realize it. you know, yeah. And at the time, it felt like, oh, my life is over, everything's wrong, oh my God, I don't have anybody. But it was the best thing that could have happened to me. And just sitting still with myself and then subsequently with God, he really began to open my eyes to realize it. And then the second thing is, shortly after that time, I was on the phone with my grandmother just randomly, talking. And she's like, oh, I came by this letter that you wrote me when you were 14, and I just love you so much and everything like that. And I'm like, what letter? Back in the day, you used to write letters and mail them. And I had moved away. I'm like, what letter are you talking about? And she read this letter to me, and it was so sad. It was so, depressed, oh, the family would be better off without me, and I just hate life, and all of these things. And I was 14, and it opened my eyes that I was thinking as an adult that, oh, this situation is causing me to be unhappy, or this relationship is causing me to be, or it was just all of these things. And it's no, that's something that's been there for a long time. So that opened my eyes in a new way to just how present that still was, or how long, rather, that had been there. Yeah, and that's how I realized it.
All right, let's switcheroo. I think it began by, sometimes God would use the stable foundations in your life to show you something. Mm-hmm. Because I was at a place where even if God was speaking to me, which he was, when you are so into this, this idea of an image, your heart, there's so much callous on your heart to even hear what he's saying. And so it was through my brother, because my brother had seen the different variations of Stephanie. And, there's a point where I call everyone love, hey love, hey babe. And then there was a point where, this is in college, I'm calling, my love turned to the name we called, the female dog. And so that was the name for everybody, hey, female dog. And my brother, seeing that in one, he's like, okay, hold up, on one end, you're calling people female dogs. On another end, you're going for Bible study faithfully. And he called me out, and he's like, dude, what's going on? Who are you, And in that moment, it hit me, and I was like, wait a minute, who am I, And that began a breaking process. And I was like, God, who have I allowed myself to be, and in so many beings, who have I allowed this to happen? And that's when I started to really hear what God was speaking to me. And that, that really started that whole vulnerability process.
It was after actually I had met the Lord, because, you go through what you go through, and then suddenly I realized, I just had a really powerful encounter with God, and I realized, how much he loved me and what grace really was, and I'm really glad it's my middle name and need lots of it. But so I had known the Lord, and I had, I actually met him by reading scripture and listening to worship and all the things that we do encounter God with, but I had so much pain still in my heart that I hadn't dealt with. And honestly, I hadn't really seen people deal with pain before. I knew that there were people in my family who had really tragic things happen, and there was lots of pain there, but I had never seen it dealt with. There was always, we're new in Christ, and that was kind of the thing that I had always heard. But I had never, I don't know, the words God, he heals that, were totally new when we meet Jesus, and I was a whole new person, but then my life just kind of took a pause, and everything that I was trying to work for, it wasn't working. And I started to become miserable, and I was really involved in church, and I said all the right stuff in Bible study, and I meant it, I really did know Jesus at that point. But I had so much pain, and I remember a friend of mine who was like a mother to me, and she was like, Katie, she's like, I had a dream, and I see you with two little girls, and one is like, she just said one, I don't know, she said demon possessed. That's not really what she said, but kind of along those lines, like one little girl is just tormented and she's a mess, and the other little girl is great. And of course, I spiritualized it away, and I was like, well, that's da-da-da-da, and I wasn't ready. Like it was, a few months later, actually, I ended up but I was able to confront like all the pain that I had inside, and I was able to be more of who I was. And it wasn't just I wasn't in denial of who I had been or what I had done, but I wasn't free to be who I really was, because I almost was living this, how do I say, almost like a, not hyper-spiritual, but still a little bit that way, where I wasn't just free to be able to relax like in myself and in relationships and in love, because there was so much pain still there. So kind of with everything falling apart, being confronted on what she saw, like it was really eye-opening, and that was where I came to.
I think one of the things that we make a habit of doing is that we stray away from people who really see us. Yeah. I can say that I think my moment of like real change came when God gave me everything I asked for. And it was nothing I needed. It was nothing I needed. And I think sometimes God just decides, like, I'm not going to bargain with you. I'm not going to fight with you. I'm not going to convince you that my way is the best way. I'm just going to give you everything you asked for, and then I'm going to just let you drown in it. And so I'm looking at my life from the outside looking in, and I'm like, this is exactly what I hoped for. You know, this is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I thought would fix the pain, but I'm still hurting. And I think one of the most powerful things that a woman can ever say is, ouch.
Yeah.
Like, it hurt. You know, like I thought I was over it. I thought I could deal with it. You know, my dad wasn't in my life. I was molested. I was raped. I've been depressed. I dropped out of school, or school dropped out on me, whatever it is. Because sometimes, you know, school will just leave you out there. Whatever it is, when we're able to verbalize that disappointment and not just act like we recovered. I used to write this blog all the time, and one of the, I think, best blogs that I ever wrote was about these wounds that we get. And we get these wounds and they bleed on the outside, and that's how we know we're hurt. But when it's time to heal, they heal from the inside out, that it starts with the deepest layer of pain. And then as it heals, then it begins to show on the outside that we're healed. The problem is that so many of us just want to throw these Band-Aids over our wounds and pretend that we're okay. Which means that when we do come to a place where ultimately we have to admit that we're hurting, that we're not just saying that we're hurting over one situation. That in actuality, we're hurting over a pattern that we have created to cope with our pain. And so I want to challenge us today to take a look at our patterns. When you look back on who you were, do you recognize any patterns in your life that you had to break in order to fully embrace who you are now? I'll say one of the patterns I had to break was this idea that life had to go the way I planned. And that if it didn't go the way that I planned, that it was a failure. Because the reality is that sometimes life doesn't go the way that you planned, and it feels like a failure to your plan, but it's actually a success for what God has for you. And so I would be beating myself up for this failure, for this perception of you didn't do right, you didn't do it well, and everyone can tell, and now everyone knows that you were faking, or everyone knows that it wasn't real. And so now you start to see yourself through the lenses of your insecurities and how you think other people perceive you, instead of coming to a place where you recognize that everyone's life has fallen apart in some capacity. In some capacity, and sometimes you can see it, and sometimes you can't. But all that really matters is that we all come to this place of love and acceptance and patience with one another, that we're willing to extend the same grace that we want to receive. And so I would like to know, ladies, what was your pattern and how did you break it? And hold the mic real close.
This is real close. This again. This time is I'm going to be very, very transparent.
That's
Painfully.
okay.
Yeah, that's okay. My pattern was feeling like I had to have a man in my life. My father wasn't there when I was growing up, to no fault of his own. He did the best that he could, both of my parents. My father's no longer with us. He was murdered. But I didn't know growing up what he looked like. I knew his name, but that's it. And there was this like void that was there. And I used to feel like I was meant to be a daddy's girl. And that's why I'm God's daddy's girl now, like I see. But, I was meant to be a daddy's girl. So growing up, I sought that attention. I didn't, seek it, but I accepted it from guys. And I saw, oh, yeah, that feels good. It feels good to be wanted and desired and everything like that. So from the age of 14 on up, I would have this serious boyfriend, all the time. And that was my pattern. And I began to really see it when I talked about things falling apart and God letting that happen. I began to see that this was my pattern because that relationship, the last one, it fell apart. It was awful and everything. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take time to heal. Just spend time with me, and the next one will be the one. But God was like, no, And it's been 4 years now. For 4 years, I've been single. And God, because he'll take you through the stages to break a pattern, because he's gentle, so once you recognize it. So it turned from me having a man in the flesh to me having one in my head, thoughts of one. I always had to be thinking about some guy or the possibility of some guy, and now I can say that it's way more broken than it's ever been, and it's helped me to get to who I am now because that was a numbing agent. It was a numbing. So I would run from certain types of pain to that in my head, either, this guy, or if I had a man like this. And when you take that away, that crutch away of that pattern, I really had to allow God to feel that and just depend on him in new ways and everything. Yeah. So that was my pattern.
Just, if you all could relate to Dania said, if you could just throw up a hand, because sometimes you feel like you have to.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
This is working. So I would say, how she said was my pattern. I would really use my relationship with God to cover up what the real issue was. And it was a control issue. My father was murdered when I was a baby, and when my mother would tell me what she experienced because of that loss, I said, you know what, I cannot let something else dictate what the outcome of my life. And so I had a really big control thing, especially with, when she talks about relationships, especially with even in the areas of men, because I would date you, but I don't want to be your girlfriend. Because I need to be in control of what's going on. And, but I will cover it up. But you know what? I don't think the Lord is really is in this. And and it will be the same thing even with even with friends. if you start stepping too close to me and you want to start, bringing out emotions and all kinds of things, some people know, like God has worked on me. I've called people and I'm like, I missed your call 2 years ago. I just don't call you back. Because I would literally, and it was really interesting, if you start trying to get too much out of me that I'm not willing to give, I will cut you off out of my life instantly. Because I needed to be in control of how this friendship is. Even if, and it was really sad because someone would be expressing their concerns to me, and I'm like, this chick is tripping. Like, that is not my problem. That is a personal issue. And I'm like, the Lord is just not in this friendship. And so, God had to just silence me a bit. But I would use the Lord, I'm feeling that the God is not in this, as a way to break off without addressing that I had a control issue.
That's really good. I identify with a lot of that. So I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time? I got so caught up in everything.
What was your pattern and how did you break it?
Right, okay, pattern. Now, it's funny because a lot of times when people get to know me, one of the things is that I'm so open, which I am, but there's also that part of my heart that I have guarded so often. When you experience pain at any point in your life, it's not something we're really made to deal with, so we have to learn how to deal with it, and it can be really scary, and betrayal and disappointment and all those different things that happen in life are going to happen, even if I keep that wall there. So I think one of the big things was letting people really in, not just anybody, but really letting people in. And I think the story I told about the woman who really saw me, like those kind of things. I think the pattern definitely is just walls on the heart, that kind of thing. I'll be open about what I think about or what I feel about something, but as far as letting people in, that was something that God had to really take me to those really intimate places in relationships, and then make, kind of, how do I say, I had to find my security in Him, and it wasn't about what other people were going to do or what they weren't going to do. He's my safe place. Like, I can be open, and I can let people in, and I can be affected by the people around me, and I can be impacted by them, but I'm always safe with Him. So I definitely, the pattern is, having a guarded heart and just hiding.
So you come to this place where you're able to have an authentic relationship with God, where you're willing to face yourself and maybe who you used to be. Do you love yourself automatically? Is it just easy for you to look back over those patterns in that moment and feel okay with who you are, or is it a process and a journey? And how did you come to a place where you were willing to even vocalize? And some people won't vocalize their truth to themselves. Mm-hmm. They won't say it to themselves at night that I've been hurt, that I'm in this relationship because it's numbing me instead of healing me. Some people won't admit that to themselves. How did you come to a place where you are able to share it openly and transparently? Is it from your relationship with God?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely, it did not come automatically. Me just embracing who I was, loving who I was. It was a process. The longer I allow God to show me His love for me, then the easier it became for me to love who I was too. Mm-hmm. And just all that I'd been through, all that I'd done, all of the heartbreaks I had or caused or whatever, just
getting into his love more and more made it easier. And one way that I knew that it truly was me loving myself, who I was, is when I could share it with other people. Because there was a period where I secretly loved who I was and embraced who I was, but you had to be like this with me for me to tell you about it. So the more that I began to truly love who I was, which was a process, the more God loved me, the more I began to share it, and I didn't feel the fear as much of being judged by anyone or what they'll think of me afterward and everything like that. And it's like that currently, too. I think the more transparent we can be about what we're struggling with now, it's an indication that we really love who we are now, you know. It's easy to say, oh, way back when but now, today, let me tell you what my struggle was this morning, so, yeah.
Definitely, I think in the beginning of my relationship with God, I embraced God at an early age. It was more so that there's the reality that there's a Father. But it was up until when I actually had, how you have a relationship with God, but you're not really having honest conversations with him. And so it was up until the point where I'm embracing him as the love, to receive the love of a Father, and that I could share that, God, my truth. And it was that, God, I'm afraid. I'm not sure if all things are going to work for my good, and share those things. Because the truth was, even in the moments of the things I would do or cut people off or all those things, I had emotions. I just didn't want those things to show. And so my bathroom was my crying place. And I even shared this with my friends one time. I remember I filmed myself crying, so I remember how it looked. And it was, oh, the glory. But it was like that because I felt like I didn't have someone to really just be honest with and say that I am afraid that, I'm going to show too much. And just like she said, and this person might judge that, or I'm going to, show this person how much I care about them and they walk away and all those things. But it was in being able to express that, in the most honest way I could to God. And it was a lot of tears, a lot of weeping. And that really, kind of broke those things.
Definitely honesty about who I was in the good times and the bad times. And then not being so surprised at the bad times, because sometimes it's like, oh, how could I have done that? Or a little, and then like this very much disappointment, like how could you do that? And that kind of thing, instead of realizing that God, like, he really loves us and he really enjoys us, even on my worst day, even when I just make a fool of myself in whatever way, or just really, I'm really disappointed. And he's like, I'm not disappointed. I don't love you less. I haven't put you up to be something that you're expecting of yourself. And I think just being honest about who I am, and on my worst day and on my best day, and just really believing, and I think being around people too that really, celebrate who we are and who I am, again, on my best day and on my worst day. And you're not defined by those things. Like, we just love and celebrate one another in the midst of all that. That definitely all together has helped, so.
I think that one of the things that helped me to just come to a place where I embraced myself was embracing other people. Mm-hmm. I had to admit that I was a hater, to other people. Like, that I could look at a girl and tear her down, that I could say, well, I don't know, her hair's not done, or did you hear about who she slept with, and I heard she's a hoe, having my own feelings of hoedom roaming around freely in my spirit. that I had to, if I wanted to really love and embrace myself, that I had to practice loving and embracing other women. That's why one of the things I said, like to show one another a compliment. Because sometimes it can be so hard for us to sow love because we are afraid of the rejection that will come with it. And so what we do if we aren't careful is we find ourselves being overly critical of other people, where we decide that we're just going to be the one that is abrasive all the time. And if you coming over here, you need to hear the truth because I'm going to tell you about yourself, okay? And so we become so hard and so mean, and we say that this is just who I am and you have to accept it, really not willing to admit that that is an internalization of how we criticize ourselves. That the only reason I could speak down to you as another woman is because I've practiced speaking down to myself. And we become toxic and hazardous to any environment that we're in when we've made it our commitment to be the ultimate truth teller, no matter whose feelings it hurts. Because we find ourselves in these moments where we do need love and we do need to be embraced, but we can't do it because now we've sown so much hate that we don't even trust love when it comes our way. And so when we talk about God's love and God filling us up, we put our issues on him. And we say he couldn't possibly love us unconditionally. He couldn't possibly, if he really knew who I was, this love wouldn't be accessible to me. And so we end up isolating ourselves from the very love that we need to heal. And so I think for me, and what I would encourage all of us to do is to whisper our truth to ourselves until we have the courage to maybe share it and save someone else. And even if we never get to share our truth with someone else, maybe we never get that freedom fully, that we can at least sow love into the lives of other people, that we don't make it our mission to tear one another down, that we like the picture on Instagram when her brows are right, because you know the brow struggle is hard. And if she comes through, let her know she came through. Or if you see another woman who's grown and you've seen her go through some tough changes and, I know it must have not been easy. I saw that you went through that divorce, or I see you growing. I see you're more committed in church. I see you took that mic and shared your story, that you commend another woman for her willingness to be brave. And not to use it as an opportunity to be like, well, you stuttered over your words, but beyond that, it was okay. When we have this need to constantly make sure that you don't think too highly of yourself when we have an opportunity to build one another up. So that's who we were. I want to know, who are you now, good and bad?
Who am I now? Do y'all know that song, You're a good, good father. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. That was my one voice audition, I hope. No, really. That's who I am. Like, I love that song because it speaks my identity. Like, God is my good father, and I'm loved by him, period. And I, Forrest Gump my way through this life. I love that movie. But just putting one foot in front of the other, I am more than a conqueror. By default, I'm royalty. I'm all of these amazing things because he's my good father and I'm loved by him, period. So that's who I am, the good. Who I am, the bad, and in process, who I am in process. And this was just like maybe a couple of weeks ago. So this is really recent. The Holy Spirit was like, you don't have to earn my love. You don't have to perform. You don't have to go on a 5-day fast to hear from me. Fasting, not that it's bad, but to feel like that's what you have to do to earn this relationship with God. No, you don't. You don't. Yeah.
And it's because I love him so much and I want this relationship with him, but he'll give me this revelation and I'll find my way back to the trying to earn it. So that's something that's in process currently, yeah.
Question that I've battled with for so many years. And it was because a lot of times when I would think of who I am, I would think of a doing. Like, is it connected to what I do? You know, and so when there was something that I wasn't doing, or if I'm speaking of something that took place years ago, it's like, okay, the now is no longer relevant. And so I struggle with that so long because I'm like, okay, who am I for real? Like, do I say I'm this, but I'm working on that, so I'm not really that? And finally, it just like she mentioned, it really came down to a foundation that cannot be taken away from me. And it's being a daughter of the King. And that is what summed it, that this is who I am. And in that identity, who I am in process is around the corner. And because in the process of it is just accepting that freedom. Because one of the beautiful things is that in Christ, even when the Bible talks about, you know, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. And accepting that freedom is difficult because you think that, well, maybe I can't do this or I can. Like, it's a conflict because you're like, well, I'm representing God, so maybe I shouldn't do that. Now, I like wine. You know, I like a good wine. And sometimes I'm like, should I be drinking this wine? You know, and it's like, God is like, I'm not tripping over the wine. I'm tripping if you're tripping for the wine, you know. And so I think in the process is just that freedom in God, you know, understanding what he's not really tripping about and understanding what matters to him. And so is it in that freedom of being the daughter of the King? Yeah.
Absolutely, both of those things. I mean, yeah, I feel like I'm just going to echo everything both of you just said. Who I am now is I'm loved by God and I'm accepted, again, on my best day and on my worst day. And I think being comfortable enough just in the process of where God is in my life and learning to focus on the things that he's focusing on instead of what my mind thinks I should be focused on, and that's the performance, and that's, you know, of course, the earning. And I don't know how we got to that place where we think that love and acceptance are something that we work for and that we have to perform for, because that's what we were created for, and that's what I was created for. And I can't imagine not living in that place where God is my safe place and his love is not changing. And that's who I am in the struggle. What is the second part? I think just still always trying to go back to performance and earning and have I done X, Y, and Z. And even though it's deep down, I know that he loves me and wants to bless me despite how perfect I think I should be. Because, I mean, it's real. Like, I have a hard time not being perfect, and I'm very much not perfect. But for some reason, that still seems to be the goal. So I think still struggling, that's still like a real process.
I think that one of the things that I am really challenging myself in now, when I have to ask myself the question, who am I now? I think is not apologizing for what I know. And I think that, you know, part of taking that relationship with God and channeling it into our, you know, day-to-day life is being honest. I think especially, well, I won't say especially as women, maybe men do it too, but they're not here to speak, so. But I've had so many conversations with women where they say, I don't know. You know, what should you do in this relationship? Well, my heart's been broken, but I don't know. Or, I need a new job. I'm not feeling fulfilled and there's no purpose in it, but I don't know. But the truth is you do know. And the more that you say you don't know, you cheat on yourself. You cheat on that knowing that the Holy Spirit places inside of you. And I think that the only way that we're able to fully grow and evolve is when we come to a place where we don't apologize for what we know. And I think that that's one of the things that I've really been working on, is that when I state my opinion, when I state how I feel, that I don't backdoor it with, but I don't know, or I'm sorry that I feel this way, or I'm sorry that I had to tell you the truth. And I'm not one of those people who just tells any kind of old truth. Like, I say it in love and all of that, but I don't have to apologize for what I've gone through. Like, you've earned these scars, you've earned these wounds, and there's wisdom in that. Don't then apologize for having the wisdom to know better. And for having the wisdom to say, I don't have to take that. Like, I love you. May the Lord bless and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you. But I don't have to sign up for that. And I don't have to pretend that I don't know better to be in relationship with you. At the point that we're on opposite sides of the fence, that is totally fine. But I'm not going to drag you into the knowledge of who I am. You either see it or you don't, and I won't apologize for that. And I have to tell you, I really had to come to that place because obviously within the last year, my life has undergone another redefinition with moving to Los Angeles and being married to a pastor. And, what does that first lady thing look like for you? And does it have to be what your mother did? Does it have to be what everyone else expects? And I had to come to a place where I was completely fine with doing it my way and completely fine with people not getting it. And I think that as we continue to evolve and change, that we have to come to a place where we're okay with being misunderstood. And certainly we'll try our best to put out the most authentic version of ourselves, but we will not become obsessed with making sure that people understand who we are and our heart and where we came from, because ultimately that's a distraction from becoming even better. And so as we speak to becoming, who are we becoming? I want to ask you all, as you look at your life, as you look at the patterns and the things you had to break and the things you had to shake off and where you are now, sometimes we have this knowing inside of us that something is changing within us. I don't know exactly what that change is going to lead to. I don't know who I'm going to be on the other side of this, but I can tell that I'm changing. How do you fall in love with the process of evolution? How do you fall in love with the process of becoming? I'm not exactly who I used to be. I don't exactly fit in the circles I used to fit in, but I'm not exactly on the other side of the fence either. How do you find comfort in those places?
I find comfort in not taking it so seriously like I used to. It's okay. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, what it's going to look like, but God does, and I trust him. And I trust that he's here with me and in me, and just that he has his hand on all of it. And that helps me to just stop and smell the roses a little bit, like enjoy the process now, even when I mess up at something. So I feel like to laugh at myself more, to be more comfortable in uncomfortableness, because it's going to be okay. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get to that place, yeah.
I think that, with the process, I think one of the biggest things that helps me is knowing that God is not a waster, that he doesn't waste any part of your life. And so in knowing that everything is used, everything is valuable, everything will come together, it's so helpful. And that's when, that passage that really came true to me, that God would do all things for your good. You know what I mean? That passage. It's in the song. He's intentional. But But in knowing that, like that God is not a waster, that helps me, because then no matter what I have to let go of or add on or all that stuff, that it all works together. And even in who I'm becoming, to even backtrack of what Sarah said, is I'm becoming responsible, and responsible for what I know, especially responsible, acting out and walking in the truth that I know, and not just making excuses. And even if I make a mistake, that God is not a waster, and he would work that for my good.
Grace, it's my name, but I'm so glad it's my name. I think having grace with myself and receiving grace in the process I think keeps me moving forward, and it gives space for me to grow and continue to change and continue to embrace like what God is doing and what's happening inside of me and in my life, and just having grace with myself and having grace with, I think, myself, because it's funny how we're just so hard on ourselves sometimes, and if I see where God is taking me, then I should have it all. I should be staying on track and be doing, X, Y, and Z, but he's so in the process. And so I think being able to relax and just trust, like, he really is more faithful than we could ever be, and he will be more good to us than we could ever imagine, and being able to just rest in that and relax into just the moment and where I am, and even with the future in sight.
We're going to open it up for questions if you guys just want to share or ask questions about our own process. Vanetta is here. And do you have a mic? She's going to steal a microphone. And we just want to encourage an environment of love and transparency and vulnerability. Nobody's judging. She may need you to line up. You may have to get up. But while you guys are gathering and getting your thoughts and things together, I want to challenge you all. They asked me, what should we name this for the YouTube or podcast video? And because I'm praying that PT will allow us to have more of these, I figured we shouldn't just call it Heart Chats. And so I asked them to name it Never Stop Becoming, because I think what's more important than who you were and who you are now is that you are committed to constantly evolving. And so as you get into these uncomfortable positions that often come with growth, that are required as a part of growth, that you strip yourself from everything you thought you knew about yourself so that you can be open to expand and grow again, that you never, ever stop becoming. And that you don't lock yourself into this identity of who you think you have to be, that you're open. And that's one of the things that I've been challenged with, even over the last years. I had this image in my head of me being this, like, single mother warrior. And, I wasn't going to get married anymore. I tried that, didn't work. And and that I was just going to be this. I had this image in my head. And so part of my process in becoming is embracing my role as a woman, embracing that my life has changed again, and that there's beauty in that every change isn't negative, and that every detour doesn't mean that you're going to hit a dead end, that sometimes it gets you to certain places faster. And really taking a moment to recognize in those moments of uncomfortableness that you're not just supposed to be uncomfortable, that you're supposed to be seeking. That even in those times of isolation, that God is trying to show you something about yourself or show you something about your circle, and to be open to whatever that is that he's trying to reveal. And once you come to a place where you are really okay with that becoming process, then you don't have to be afraid when change comes your way. Sometimes we can be so afraid of change that we miss the opportunity to grow. And so don't become so afraid of that you miss your blessing is in the change. It's in the twists and the turns. That's where all of the wisdom lies. So I just want to encourage you all to never stop becoming. I think we have some questions.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Akabwe, and my question is, I recently went through a large change in my life that was devastating. I lost my place after housing 2 other women in my own home. And I felt resentful because I had that heart and taken advantage of. And in the end, I was left by myself. And so I want to ask God, in this process that I'm going through, of course, I forgave the people, and we're always supposed to forgive. But in the process, I think one of the things I need to ask God is, if I opened my heart to give God, why in the end was I left behind? And so that's one of the things is, performance, you want to perform well for God. I said, did I not perform well, or did I mess up? Or so constantly just saying, Jen, forgive yourself. Did I mess up? Did I not do it right? Did I do everything perfect? And then why in the end? So I think that's where I'm trying to figure out for God. Like, he's teaching me that. So I just wanted to ask, like, how do you cope with that, and what is God might be teaching me in that process?
If you guys want to chime in, but I think that you have to come to a place where you are okay with not knowing in that moment. Things happen and we want answers immediately, and sometimes it takes time to really reveal why we were in certain situations. And so I think while you're in the process of becoming, because that's another form of becoming, is you're understanding who was I that put myself in that situation. And because I was in that situation, now who do I have the potential to become? And I think that you can mess things up by trying to figure out what went wrong. Girl, it went wrong. Like, it don't matter why or how, you know what I mean? At this point, it's gone wrong. So how do I pick up the pieces from what's gone wrong in my life, learn from them, embrace them, kiss them, offer them to God so that he can exchange my beauty for ashes, is what we're talking about. And we can't change it. As much as it hurts, as much as it's disappointing, it can't be changed. And so now how do I move forward without blaming myself or dealing with unforgiveness? I think it's big. Sometimes we say we forgive people when we really don't. We just feel like that's the Christian thing to say. But can I go to God and say, I don't really forgive them yet, And so can you help me come to a place where I can forgive them, where I can forgive myself, and ultimately where I can move forward? Yeah, and I think that that's where your peace is. But it's happened, and I promise you, she said, God is not a waster. You didn't go through it for nothing. You didn't go through it for nothing. And even if you feel like I don't have anything left after this, that I've been completely shattered, the reality is that he will take a speck, and turn it into magnitude. And so there's a lesson even in your heartbreak, and you have to trust that.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm Rashanti. I just wanted to thank you for this amazing conference.
Heart check, girl.
Yes. Thank you so much for this. Recently, last year, I'm married. Hey. Praise God for my husband. I'm excited. So last year, I spent more time focusing on my personal life and trying to establish my home. But this year, I really want for God to just guide me. Like, I feel like I have a stronger purpose. I've done fashion and wardrobe and things, but I want to really be used and bring it together. And I just wanted to ask you all about your feedback and how to create a balance, like, between your relationship with God and find direction with the path that he wants to take you on with your career. Like, how do you establish that with your heart, your spirit, and just bring it all together?
I would say that because relationship with God is in every area. And I think a lot of times we have these moments where we single out God. Like, for example, we pray in the morning. And so that's like a time where all we're doing is praying. So it seems like when we involve God, it's a singled out area. But it's in every area. And he's interested in your business. He's interested in all those things. And it's through him that we get direction. And so it's just in the sense that God is the balance. It's not how to balance that and that. It's not to single him out in one part and then figure out this other part. But through him, we have direction in everything because that desire, he gave it to you. So I would say that he is the balance.
what I immediately thought of is something that he shows me is seek first the kingdom. And like Stephanie said, it'll integrate into all areas. You won't be working without him. You'll be working with him and everything. And he'll definitely, give you that.
Just going to add my nugget as you walk to your seat. You look good, girl. Just so you know. But also, I think that when you are married and you start to have family and all of these different responsibilities, that there could be a fear of falling off. And that you have to recognize that your marriage is a part of your come up. And I don't mean that, I'm not saying get out your, gold digging. I'm saying that literally, literally that God has placed that man in your life to help even your career. And so don't think because you took some time off to really stabilize your family and learn who you are as a wife, that means that I've lost time on this side, because God is also an accelerator. And he'll take your time off and really turn it into time where you were really putting in work in one area so that he could put in work in another area. So don't feel like you've lost anything by building your home. That is the foundation in which will make your career last ultimately.
Hi, excuse me, I'm Megan, and I'm a divorcee. I'm happily divorced from what I was in. And one of the reasons, I feel like Tyler Perry said it best, why did I get married? I married because I was celibate until my honeymoon, so I was celibate for over 2 years. And I would never encourage anyone not to do that because it was really powerful between you, your body, and God. However, sex is one of the leading rates of divorce, and I'll be honest, it never, ever, 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 ever got better. And I think it was because that was my very motive. I'm just being real, and it never got better. So my question is, and I'm happily single right now, and I'm again in the celibate boat, but I don't know when it comes to like somebody that I feel like I can wait, like if we just try it once, but no, I know, okay, I know. I'm not spewing that out. I'm not spewing this spirit. I'm not. But it's like literally, this is my dilemma and this is my question. Because again, like all this, the pinky promise and all that, it's great. But my mess is my ministry and I've been in it. Like, don't let that be your motive to get married. And that was mine. So I have nobody I want to give it to. But what I'm saying is when I get to that moment where it may be the fiancé-ship again, it will be. But you know what I mean? Whenever that comes, I don't know.
Wow. Y'all, I got this one. Okay. That was a lot without my vitamins this morning. Okay. It cannot be your motivation for getting married. That's one of the things that we've learned for sure from what she says is getting married to end the celibacy is not wise. When God brings someone into your life, you won't have to test out the goods. Because God will already know exactly what you need, or he will send you a willing vessel. One of the beauties of marriage is learning and growing together and learning and growing with one another. And so, seriously, all jokes aside, because I know that is a concern when it comes to celibacy or remaining a virgin until you get married, is what if I get locked down and the thing isn't good? Because it's already been blessed by God. There's a difference there's a difference. Might have to cut the live stream. But I will say that a lot of women, especially in our generation, have become masters at being sexual and novices in intimacy. And when you have a marriage that is formed by God and brought together by God, the intimacy of you all being together starts long before your bodies even touch.
Hi. That was really good. Difficult part. My name is Chi Chi, and I had a question for any of you guys on the panel. If in the journey to who you are now or who you're becoming, how have you dealt with perhaps hurting people along the way with the mistakes that you've made in your past and come to terms with that guilt and forgiving yourself? Because, I mean, I found that that's a struggle that I've been dealing with because, you know, I've made mistakes and hurt people that didn't deserve to be hurt. And realizing why I hurt them and knowing that I was trying to grow is also very difficult to, you know, come to terms with. So.
If that's okay, because I struggle with that really, really hard because I've hurt people a lot, especially one person in particular, and it would just tear me up anytime I thought about it for years. You know, I really didn't forgive myself for it. But one thing that has helped is trusting that God will make sure that person's okay. And I even pray sometimes when I can't talk to people like, God, give that person my love, you know. They'll be okay. And like Stephanie said, he's not a waster. So even that he'll use for the greater good. So just growing and trusting him. And he's so, so sweet that he will probably bring y'all back together in the future. And you'll see, and that person will be like, oh, my God, no, it's okay. That helped me. Just like when I was most hurt by people, I'm grateful for it because things needed to fall apart in that way for me to get to where I am now. So I love them. I'm grateful, you know?
Yeah. Because I think even a lot of times pain becomes a motivation to take away from your authenticity. So now you do extra for them to know that you're sorry. And just like you said, when you forgive yourself first, and like she said also, not everyone that you might have hurt in the past is supposed to be in your present. And so when you forgive yourself and just letting God show his love to them and loving them from a distance, or if he brings that person back in your life, but that should never even be a motivator to, you know, start doing extra. Like, oh, let me let them see how much, or then you walk out of your authenticity because you want to prove to someone that you're sorry. But once you've really acknowledged within yourself that, you know what, I was in a place back then, and everyone's walk has casualties, everyone. We're all gonna hurt somebody, you'll be hurt, but it's really just coming to terms with, you know what, I forgive myself, and I'm just gonna trust God with it.
We're probably only going to be able to take like 4 more questions before they kick us out because I told them we'd be finished about 12:30. So I just want to give you all a heads up. And if we could just make them as quick as possible so we could get as many people in.
Hi, I'm Dee. I don't necessarily have a question, but my voice is weird. I just want to commend you because growing up, I'm always taught that vulnerability equals weakness. So I wanted to commend you because on my journey, I'm realizing that I'm not the person who I thought I was. You know, you always think you all that, and God tells you sometimes you ain't all that, you know, and that's what I'm going through. And I just wanted to commend you guys for being vulnerable and telling your stories because, like I said, I've never really had that. My parents taught me how to fake perfection, how to go outside. You better not talk about what's going on inside. Like, you know, you don't talk about anything in the house, outside, you know, we have to fake perfection. You have it all together. Go outside with your hair done, you know, even when it's an eviction notice on the door. So I just, again, wanted to commend you guys because I can really relate, and vulnerability is a powerful thing because once you put your power out there, no one can take that from you. And I just wanted to encourage and just let you guys know that I love what you guys are doing. That's all.
Really quick, I feel like I'm a really solid chick. And I'm really strong, and I pray a lot, and I talk to God a lot. He's like my everything, my number one. So I feel like I have a lot of tools. But one thing one area that I thought I was really strong in is like not worrying. And I parted this side of my hair to this side, and there's like so much gray. And so I'm thinking to myself, maybe I'm not doing so good at it. You know, and I started to dissect my life and think, what am I worrying about? What am I worrying about? So one of them is, you know, I've come a long way in my life, and I used to be like really low, no money, stressed and everything. One of the things I feel like I worry about is going back to that life. And I really feel like if God gives me a pot of hot water, a bar of soap, and a tent and says, hey, this is your new life, I will walk away and say, God, I love you. You know what, maybe this is the road that's better, I don't know. But I will miss my car, I can't help it. I have these fleshy things. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be lacking. I don't want to go back, I want to go forward. So I feel like in the back of my head, I'm worrying about money. You know, I'm worrying about my family members, and I want them to be okay. I feel like I pray, but I don't feel like I have a tool or tools that are really working to help me not to worry in the back of my head. I can speak it with my mouth all day, but I know it's probably there, and the gray is just, there's more coming.
You have to practice not worrying. Like, you have to really practice it. The moment that you have those thoughts, you have to capture it and counter it with truth. And the truth is that, yes, one day it may be a pot of hot water and a bar of soap, but it's not right now. And so right now I'm going to live in the promises that you have for my life right now, and I'm not going to worry about what happens next week because I don't have control over it anyway. And then you have to trust your strength, because you say you would be okay with that, but if you're worried about it, a part of you doesn't feel like you'd be okay with it. So you have to trust your strength, and you have to trust your ability to survive, which means that when I come to a place where I trust my ability to survive, that means I can be vulnerable, that means I could be poor, that means I could be rich, I could be whatever, but home base for me is this relationship with God. And as long as I do have that, then I can't be God and serve God at the same time. So you have to release yourself from the responsibility of being ruler over your life and your family's life and making sure they have it together and making sure you keep it together. And it's going to take practice. It's not going to be one tool that we give you today and you walk out there and you're ready to take on anything that comes your way. You have to practice changing your mindset. And once you practice it, it will become a part of who you are.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, panelists. Hey, everyone. I just want to say thank you so much for putting this together. At first, you know, when the announcement was made that this will be going on this Saturday, I was kind of like, well, you know, it's going to be a girl thing. You know, and I kind of battled the entire weekend. It was so funny. Asia, one of my friends back there, she texted me and she was like, you know, are you going to be there? Hey, Asia. So shout out to Asia, because because this is something that personally for myself, connecting with other women has been a battle, and it's something that I don't know about the rest of y'all, but it's something that has been fought against me since high school because of a neglected friendship and things like that. And I was like, well, you know what? Forget it. But I'm so grateful for this fellowship and for this time, and God is bringing people into my life. So thank you for allowing God to use you all.
I'm Najwa. I really just wanted to, it was more of a statement than a question. I've been through like a lot of confusion and depression and things like that. I've been single almost 8.5 years. Had one boyfriend, thought that was gonna be just the Mr. Forever, and it didn't happen, and it broke me, like, which is why I've been single so long. But I lost a lot of family in the last year and everything, and I moved here last week, and I was so like, oh, I'm going, like everything's gonna change, and I got here now, and now I'm terrified because I don't know, like I met people since I've been here and stuff like that, but as far as like knowing people, like friends I had here for a long time or family, I have none of that. I'm just here, it's just me. So.
Yeah. I totally understand what it feels like to be out here and feel like you're a part of a big something, but you don't know where you fit in it yet. And I think that that's a beautiful place for you to be in because you get to really figure out who you are now without other people's opinions, without your family's identity. And so as scary as it is from personal experience, it is a necessary time in your life for you to really hear your own thoughts, to see your own patterns, to see how you interact with people, to build genuine friendships, to shun away from friendships that may pull you back into who you used to be, and to really set your vision on what life in LA looks like for you, and to get in a community. I mean, I'm a part of One LA. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but to join a community that helps you to see God clearly, that helps you to see yourself clearly, and then helps you to connect with other women who are on the same journey. Doesn't mean that you'll have a best friend overnight, but it could. But it means that you're at least a part of momentum. And when you're a part of momentum, then your life is going to fall into place. Can somebody give her a hug and let her know that she's not really by herself?
My name is Karis, and one of the things that I'm struggling with is being vulnerable with other people and just really showing them who I am. I actually moved back here. LA is my hometown, but I was living in Oakland for the past 6 years, and I quit my job because of burnout, and I knew it wasn't my passion. And I wasn't honest with everybody about quitting my job. I lied to some of my family and said that I was moving back to help my brother start a nonprofit, which is partly true. It's partly true, but the thing that I'm struggling with is criticism and judgment from others because, like you said, I can be a hater towards other people and I can tear the next person down, but it's kind of like we do to others what we don't want to be done to ourselves, and that makes us concerned about what other people think about us. So my question is, in terms of vulnerability, you guys talked about being authentic with yourself, and one of the things that I'm working on this year is just being gentler to myself and being kinder in terms of how I speak about myself and, you know, my thoughts and counteracting negative thoughts that come into my mind. And when you guys talked about being your authentic self and being honest about defining who you are, all I could think about was the negative things. So my question is, how do you maintain the truth about who you are and be real about that while being positive about it, if that makes sense?
Well, I'll start. You can't be vulnerable and live a lie at the same time. It's something that's always going to disconnect. And then that means that if you're going to tell the truth, if you are going to be vulnerable, that I quit my job and I came back here and I don't know where I'm starting from here, that you can't then control how other people react to your truth. That you have to live in that space and be okay with living in that space, and that is vulnerability, where you're willing to take whatever the opinion may be about your truth because you are so set on becoming better and living in that truth that it doesn't matter what anyone else says. But as long as you're trying to maintain a lie on one side and trying to be authentic on the other, you're going to have a difficult time processing who you are and who you were and who you need to become, because part of it is polluted a little bit. And so I would encourage you to start with the truth and to start telling that truth to the people who you've lied to in your circle, and being okay with what happens from there, because you cannot build anything on a lie. Nothing will be sustained. That's your self-esteem, that's your new life, that's your fresh start. If it's the foundation of it is a lie, you'll never evolve. You'll never evolve.
Hello, my name is Candy, and thank you guys again also for being transparent. I have a name for this blog series or YouTube channel. It should be Transparency Talks. I think that would be great because you guys are really, truly transparent, and there is truly purpose in our pain. And I really am thankful and grateful for you guys being transparent, because there's not a lot of people out there that are willing to do that. So I really want to say thank you and commend you all. And this time last year, I was also going through my process of discovering who I was and who I am and who I'm becoming. And one of the ways that I did that was either singing and writing. So I wanted to know, I know you documented on your blog, I wanted to know what was the way that you guys documented your process, or kind of kept yourself reflecting on your process so you can always continue to move forward.
Journal a lot as well. So I have journals from like just years on, and so a lot of times when I'm reflecting just on life, I will go through my journals and see what was going on in my mind at that time, and just the growth from that. Because a lot of times, for you to even see how far you've come, you really have to see where your mindset was, what were you paying attention to, what were you praying about, and all that stuff, and see how the conversations change over time. So I think for me, journaling really helped me.
And the Lord, for a couple of years, he was telling me to journal, but I never got consistent in it. It was just tough to sit down, but it really, really is so important, like she said. And as you look back on it, too, you can recognize patterns and how things connect, and you'll get revelation that would be tough to get if you didn't have that intimate data to look at. Yeah.
I'm going to be really quick. My name is Brianna. I actually live like in the Inland Empire in Fontana, and I want to just say thank you so much for having this event. I attend another church out there, but they don't have, things like this, so I want to thank you for that. My question is quick. Recently, I've gone through a really traumatic situation. I have a newborn baby, and me and his father, we were together, we were not married, but we were living together, everything. But, I thought everything was like, fine. Things started going left, and I was living in Georgia for 2 years. I moved back here to California. And he admitted to me the whole time I was out here pregnant that he was cheating on me, and he has a new girlfriend now, etc. So my question is, in my mind, I feel like the entire situation is my fault. It just constantly bombards me, and it really bothers me. And I just want to know, how do I get over feeling like, this is everything that's happened is something that I've caused? So
I've been in a similar situation, and I will say that I had to accept that some of it was my fault. That whether it was my insecurity, whether it was my judgment, whether it was something in me allowed that to happen. And I had to be okay with that. And the only reason why you have to come to that place is because there's ownership and power in that place. And that ownership and power is not meant to beat you down. It's meant to empower you to keep it from happening again. But I think, especially in situations like that, because for the most part, usually we aren't completely blindsided. It's not like they were completely, you know what I mean? Okay. And so you have to be willing to say that I robbed myself by ignoring what I saw and choosing to live in what I hoped. And as a part of my recovery, I will no longer put on blinders when I see red flags.
Hi, I'm Molly. My question is the breaking from people pleasing. Like, I always been the type of person that felt like I had to do something because this person will get mad. Like, for your situation, you say you thought you was gonna be a single mother, and I felt the same way, and I was in a relationship with my kid's father for 10 years, but I don't feel like I'm obligated, and because he feel like I'm obligated, I will go back and keep going back even though we hurt. Like, how do you know who your true purpose mate is? Like, how do you go beyond that without feeling bad?
I think that God will highlight things to you, and then you have to gird up your loins, hold his hand, and do it. And he may highlight people for you to let go of or people for you to say no to, because a lot of the times when we're pleasing people, it's not only bad for us, but it's bad for them. Because God, they need to get it right with God so that God can give them the things that they need. And then in the scriptures too, it's a lot where God's like, are you going to please man or are you going to please me? And I want to please God, you know, so always get on the safe side. Like, if you're not sure, if your intention is to please God, he'll bless it, he'll cover you. If it's the wrong move, he'll straighten out that crooked path or whatever, yeah.
One of my friends said something, and I love it, and she said, God is not nice, he is good. And a lot of times, we are trying to be so nice about the situation. And because the good thing, it could be separation. The good thing could be, because just like she said, a lot of times when you're letting go of someone, it's not just about you, it's about them as well. Because some people together is actually more destructive than when they're apart. And God is very... One thing I love about God is that he's very simple. Like, he's very simple. It's not complicated with him. And so when there's so many complications and all that extra stuff, you know, you want to really go with where the peace is. And if there's no peace, then, you know.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vidith. My question is, what do you do in a process where you're following a vision that God has put in your heart? So I started a nonprofit organization benefiting Haiti, and I know that this is what God has placed in my heart ever since being a child. And I was brought to a place to actually leave my job where I was getting paid really well. And now I'm in a process of doing, and I have people saying, oh, wow, like, you're doing so much in Haiti, blah, blah. Sorry to say blah, blah, but they're like, you know, complimenting what I have been able to do in Haiti, but it hasn't reached what I saw in my vision. And so I'm constantly attacking myself and what I'm doing, and I don't feel like I have reached it. Like, and then what do you do in that process where you're just doing and doing, but you haven't reached why you've been doing what God has said to do?
You keep doing. The race is not given to the swift. And I think we live in this culture where we see this, it seems like people have overnight success, and we're waiting for to wake up and it to just all have happened. And most of those people who we really, really admire have been at it for decades. And so if God could be testing your commitment to the vision, and he wants to know if you'll do it if it doesn't look like overnight success. Will you do it if the vision is different from what you have in mind and I have something else in mind? Maybe it's one child in Haiti. Maybe it's 1 million. Maybe you don't know what God has for you, but you know that God has told you to do it. And sometimes that's all that matters, is that he told Noah to build the ark and he saw no rain. And so you have to keep building and plowing and trusting in doing so, not waiting on a return, but because God told you to do it. It's not what anyone wants to hear, though.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I love hugs. My name is Raina Joy Banks, and I was fighting over there. Judy can tell you, I was like, I don't want to do this, but God gave me some words to share that he shared with me a couple years back, and it's 3 different things. One is just be so that you can become so you will already be. And for me, that word was being a wife. Act like it, talk like it, dress like it, speak like it, live like it, praise like it, worship like it, dance like it, all of those things that you know that you're called to be, already become that so that you already are that when your king comes and finds you. And then secondly, fall in love with the unknown. Fall in love with the unknown in the midst of knowing, in the midst of still not knowing. Meaning we know that God is God and that he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that he's going to fulfill every promise. But the unknown is not knowing when, where, how, what, why. But fall in love with that. And that's the next thing goes into patience through the process to the promise with perseverance and peace. That's the word for 2016.
How do you end with that? Hi, my name is La Persia. That was so amazing, Raven. My question for you is that I have been led to basically something that PT said in one of his sermons is that we go to church and it was three things. You pray, you preach, signs of miracles. I think that was the three. So I'm out, I work, and I feel like one of my things is to preach. But I don't want to be the one that I'm around a bunch of young girls where I don't want to be, or they're not really young, they're in their 20s, 30s. I don't want to be around where I feel like I'm preaching, so I want to feel like that I'm able to preach to them at their level. But I don't want to always be like, hey, let's pray. Or, so how do you go and keep inspiring them at their level, but not always feeling like you want to pray every 5 seconds when they come to you in their time of need, and understand them and know that, and then still inspire them by teaching them the difference of faith, hope, joy, and keep them moving, especially for those who are still trying to understand God and their way. And you're surprised how much people do not know Jesus and still thinking about the universe. And we're with God.
I will say that there's a difference between pastoring and preaching. Pastoring is something that takes place on a Sunday with set service times. Preaching is a lifestyle. That means that I don't always have to take a text, and I don't always have to say, come here, girl, let's pray, let me cast that demon out of you, you're tripping. That you can live a lifestyle that preaches what you wish that they would learn. And when opportunities reveal themselves, that God will give you the words of wisdom that can allow you to reach them directly. And so you don't have to make it your mantle. How do I preach to them? How do I get my message across? How do I pray with them? How do I pull them all into this prayer circle? Sometimes it's how do I just be such a witness and such a light in my environment that I make them curious about what's happening to me. God, give me an opportunity to share with them. You can preach to them without ever saying a word to them. That you can start praying for them right now and in your own prayer life, and so much so that they don't even know what's happening to them, that they have this spirit of peace that they can't fully understand, where they feel like everything's going to be okay, and they have no idea that just because they are connected to you, that their life has just gotten better. And when a person is ready, they'll come. I think that's another thing, is that sometimes we can be so on fire that we want to light everyone else up. But people need time. They have their own trust issues. They have their own wounds and their own processes that they're going through. And so I just pray that God gives me an opportunity to pour, and that when that opportunity comes, that I will be ready, that I will have wisdom, and that I will affect change.
And I just want to say quickly, also understanding people. Because even with Jesus, like with the fishermen, he didn't just go out and say, follow me. He understood their trade and helped them in their trade, and then used that to call them. And so a lot of times we want to, like, okay, God, I just want to do your will, so let me pray with this person. But you have to understand who they are, what will connect to them. Just like PT even said in the sermon, he who wins souls is wise. And so there's a lot of wisdom that plays into it, and really knowing who a person is to know how to approach certain things.
Hi, my name is Kay. I'm a sophomore college student, and so I've grown up in the church, really love God, really on fire for God, but it's kind of discouraging being in college where everybody really doesn't really care about God. I don't know. So I have a good core group of friends that we're all pursuing God, but just how do you stay encouraged and find, like, a lot of people will say, oh, you're in college, it's your time to mess up, it's your time to, like, and I'm like, no, but like, I want to pursue God. So like, how do you stay encouraged?
Just keep spending time with him and continue to, with that core group of friends. And like, God has you plugged in here, which is amazing. We're all on fire for him. We all love him. And keep in mind, too, that he needs you in those dark places. So in that place in college where everybody's all about sex, drugs, and whatever else, he needs lights there to preach with their lifestyles that, hey, there's a better, much, 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 much better way, And the Holy Spirit will teach you how to and when to speak to people and everything, and let God use you as his arms. People, yeah.
Back to your story, like that's everybody else's story, but that's not yours, and that's not what you want for your life. And it's people are going to have opinions for the rest of our lives about what we should be doing. And you get to choose. This is what I'm choosing, and this is my life. And we're the only ones who wake up with our decisions. They're not waking up with that.
Have you all enjoyed this panel? Can you help me? Give it up for my panelists. Thank you all for being a part. Do you guys have any just closing remarks for the ladies before we pray? Please don't leave if you don't have to. We want to pray you out and give you a couple of announcements, let you know when our next heart chat and gatherings will be. So go ahead.
Oh, God, my closing remark is, first of all, just thank you all so, so much for coming out in just a spirit of transparency yourselves, just all the questions and comments and just opening your hearts up to us and to God. And never stop learning to love who you were, who you are, and who you're becoming. We're always growing in it. And as First Lady mentioned, our identities are always shifting and shifting as we grow. So, yeah.
I believe that even everyone here is just a testament to the fact that this is what we all desire, and this is a conversation that we all desire to have. And so just that, and even in our personal lives with our friends and relationships that will continue to build and grow, that we should pass this on in everything, that vulnerability, accountability, and just always sharing about, owning who we were and seeing the beauty in it, and just knowing that God is not a waster in everything.
Just embracing who we are, and thank you so much for having me. I think the courage to be vulnerable and to be open is something that's invaluable, and it will continue to strengthen us as we continue to do it. And the more that we do it, the easier it gets, and the more natural it becomes to live that way.
I also want to thank you all for coming out and taking a chance and trusting us with your time, with your hearts, and with your past, presence, and future. It's not always easy to have someone else pour into you. I know sometimes, like Maya mentioned about women, it can be difficult to connect, and we don't want to go to girl stuff. We don't want to be judged, and she thinks she has it all together. And so we come in with all of these preconceived notions about one another. But we have set such an atmosphere of just love and positivity and vulnerability in this room. And I just want to remind you all that it doesn't have to end here, that you can set a tone and set a standard in your own life and your own interactions with other women that speaks to the same love and positivity that you feel in this room. And know that we are working diligently to make sure that we have more opportunities like this, that it isn't just a one-time thing, that we can all come together and be refueled so that we can go back into the world as brave, strong, courageous women. And so I just want to encourage you between now and when we meet again, to not let this feeling leave you, to let it marinate and stick with you and allow it to become a part of who you are.